Shalom, everyone. We're talking to Emah Yehudith Samuels, daughter of Rabbi Samuels, one of the pioneers of the Israelite movement here in New York City. You know, it's hard to catch her. So while we're here, I just want to talk to her and let people know, you know, what you've been up to. Talked about commandment keepers, things that have been going on currently with commandment keepers as well.
Okay, I'll be happy to talk about it. First of all, if you know anything about what we were taught, and specifically what Dr. Garvey was saying, how we came about and how we structured and how we try to leave something lasting and build a community, we have not given up. That's why I'm a lifetime member of Commandment Keepers, Ethiopian Hebrew congregation, even though my father founded Temple Zion under the umbrella of Commandment Keepers. So we've always been a part of Commandment Keepers. Even when we had Temple Zion on holy days, we'd worship at Commandment Keepers, the main body. And when my father passed away in 1962, we returned fully to that building. What we're doing, I don't know exactly what you're asking, but if I think what you're asking is the struggle continuing, absolutely. We may never get that particular building back, but the legacy of Rabbi Matthews, we're not going to allow to die. And the other thing, my mother joined Commandment Keepers at the age of 18. This is why this is important. I didn't know that. She never told me that. When I was working on the archive project, I found that out. My mother never brought that up, that she was a girl of 18 when she joined Commandment Keepers, just before she married my father. I never knew that. So that's why the records are so important. So we are most upset about that, because there are many records like that that are absolutely lost. So I want people to understand that it's not just a building, although that too, because Rabbi Matthews spent the better part of his life coming to that place. And I think I explained before, that was expected to be our generational home. And when I say ours, I mean Israel. When Rabbi made his transition, he left nothing. He could have easily left something to his family. He had a lot of family. He could have, but he didn't, because that's not what his work was. That's not what his mission was. And that building, sadly, Rabbi Smalls, his right-hand man, Rabbi Smalls moved in there at the end of his life. The last 3 years, he lived 3 years after Rabbi Matthews. He moved in there. Rabbi meant that building to be for example, the holy days. People didn't want to go home. We had some beautiful, you ever been in there?
Yeah.
Beautiful rooms upstairs and everything. People coming out of town. The intent was for people to have that place. That place was for the community. He could have easily taken something for himself. Especially in his heyday, they would have done anything for him. Never attempted, and what's so sad, you know how many years he lived there? He lasted there? 12. Sometimes I want to cry, but I don't cry so much anymore. The reason why I don't is because I understand.
So in lieu of not having that building, what is the organization doing as a group to move forward? And I'm just going to give an example. When we were at Shema Yisrael, we had a fire. We still operated without a building. Now with the whole split that took place currently between Shema Yisrael and now we have Beit Da'at Chachmabina, this congregation is operating without a building. So what is Commandment Keepers doing in terms of operating? If everything is not about the building, what is the group doing to operate in terms of Shabbat, holy days? Where can people find Commandment Keepers now?
That's an absolutely excellent question, but I'm going to do like Donald Trump's people are saying right now. Oh, well, I can't quite answer that. I'm not in a position. And I'll tell you why. Because I cannot answer that question truthfully without convicting someone else. Okay? So I'm not going to answer it truthfully except holding together. Basically, we get together all high holy days, etc., but we can do a lot more. So that's as truthful I'm going to be. Okay?
I just wanted to ask that question because not to put, like you said, you don't want to put anybody on the spot, but what happens is as time goes along, we talk about Rabbi Matthew, but the legacy also comes through commandment keepers. So people want to know, well, where's that congregation? Because you have congregations coming up, some go down, some come up, some go down. But where's the commandment keepers' legacy? Because, like you said, it's not about the building. You would like to be in the building again, but if it's not about the building, what is it about? What are the people doing? And that's what the people want to know in general. What are the people doing? Because if you don't have your own community, then people never get to hear your story. And that's usually what happens, because you're passionate about what took place, but without people knowing where to find you, they're only going to hear one side of the story.
That's why I said to you, that's an absolute excellent question. And I have no problem with the question, except I cannot answer it fully and accurately and honestly at this time, except that we're still fighting. What's going to happen once we prevail is the other part of that story. What we attempt, that's why you see me out and about and everywhere telling the story. I'm writing my memoirs. People say write a book. Well, my book will be in the form of my personal memoirs, things that I know firsthand and I can speak about. So I'm doing that all the time. So that's all I can tell you. I know that we understand that this fight that we're in could be a generational fight. It's no reason, and that's why I like the question, there's no reason that we shouldn't be doing other things. But keep in mind, I am among the younger ones, and I'm in my 70s. So a lot of people, first of all, are going on. And the question you asked earlier about, so what is the difference between the things these men did at 27 or whatever age they were to now? The difference is that they're not the same people. They don't have this, and I think Dr. Garvey did a good job of explaining what the people thought and how they felt about legacy and building something and owning something. I'm not just talking about materially, but, and you know where it comes from. And unfortunately, it seems that many of you younger people, not you, don't know who they are. And like Dr. Garvey ended it off beautifully when he talked about not knowing who you are and not having a real basis and following the trend of the world. To me, that was powerful. And that's what, in answer to your question, that's what's going on now, Ben. Okay, Rabbi Benjamin.
So also, being that you're during the generation you came up in, because a lot of this question I'm asking that comes up a lot. Terminology.
Okay.
Because today we talk about Israelite, Hebrew Israelite, Black Hebrew, Black Jew. What were the terminologies, or what was the terminology that people were using to describe themselves when you were coming up in Commandment Keepers?
It wasn't Jewish, I'll tell you that. We get a lot of lies and stories about that, especially since, I mentioned earlier that what Professor Windsor said was so profound, people needed to understand that we felt the same way as he felt. We could have very easily been brainwashed, but we were not, because we saw ourselves as an African people. Ethiopia, don't forget, is in Africa. It didn't only refer to the connection that we had with Rabbi Ford and the Ethiopian connection, what we call, quote, the Ethiopian connection. It referred to, as that young brother was saying, Cush, the blackness of the land, the black-faced people. So understand that a lot of people don't understand. Those people were brilliant who taught us. And when I speak of Rabbi, also I'm speaking in a collective. That's why I say the elders of blessed memory, because he didn't sit down and formulate that construct by himself. Okay? Brilliant people, men and women, incidentally. I was named after one of them, Mother Judith. So the terminology now, let me answer you specific. What we were taught is we were Hebrew of the Hebrews. Why we were taught that? Because there's what people don't understand. We are the youngest Hebrews, except for there are many families of Hebrews, starting with Ishmael. Ishmael is a Hebrew, Abraham's seed. Ishmael, Keturah's 7 sons, Hebrews. See, this is how deep they went. That's why you have to know, like Dr. Garvey said, and I tagged on to it. You have to know about other people. You can say, I'm an Israelite, but you don't know anything about the world. You don't know about other people. There are many families of Hebrews. People have to understand that. The scripture said that Ishmael would be a wild ass of a man. That is a Hebrew. But we are the Hebrew of the Hebrews. And this is what Rabbi Matthews taught. because we were the Hebrews who God chose, and that's what the chosenness is, to receive the law. Now you got it?
Yeah.
The Hebrew of the Hebrews. So we are not any of those things. I am a Hebrew. I don't care how many fools give us a bad name. That's who we are. We are Hebrew of the Hebrews from the family of Israel. And also remember, Israel is a family that became a nation. So who do you belong to? Who are your people? Stop being foolish. Who are you have to connect to your people? Okay?
So you're getting a lot of information. As she mentions herself, you know, she's a primary source because you grew up doing a lot of the things that we're talking about. Like we're learning stuff, but you were right.
And heard Rabbi firsthand, because somebody said, I read somewhere that Rabbi gave up his dream of going back to the land. He never had that ambition. This is very important. Rabbi Matthews said this on many occasions. Anywhere, Israel, you set your foot is going to be yours. That's what the Most High promised. So if you want to go somewhere, go. You don't have to, though. That's his direct quote. So it wasn't his desire. That was Rabbi Ford's desire. And Rabbi Ford, this is a quote from him. He said he was sick of here, and the only place that was not colonized was Ethiopia. So that was his feeling. And that's why he wanted to go back to that particular land. You notice he didn't say Israel. He said Ethiopia. He felt a real connection to Ethiopia, which was fine. You know what I mean? So does that help?
So the question that's asked is basically what the between Rabbi Ford and Rabbi Matthews.
The relationship with Rabbi Ford and Rabbi Matthews is A, as a mentor, B, as a colleague, C, as a friend, or maybe I can put it in the other direction. Yes, Rabbi Ford was more based initially. He was more based, but keep in mind, Rabbi Matthews opened Commandment Keepers, Ethiopian Hebrew congregation in 1919. Incorporated in 1921. Rabbi Ford didn't open Bet Abraham until 1924. So what does that tell us? And I said, what does that tell us? Because I wasn't there. I do know, though, that it was like sister congregations. And when Rabbi Matthews was studying, going to college and studying the Hebraic culture, etc., Rabbi Ford would oversee Commandment Keepers. So that's the kind of relationship they had. Never competitive. But I would think that he would consider Rabbi Ford his senior. I do think he would have told me if I had ever asked it. It never came up because we always knew who Rabbi Ford was, and we had the utmost respect. We always supported them when they were in Ethiopia. So it was never like a competitive thing. So, you know, it's interesting and complex. You would have to speak to, and if you ever asked Rabbi directly, he would tell you the truth about it. All I've ever known, and not only him, a number of those other men, they were just like that. It wasn't not a competitive thing. And what Rabbi wanted the congregations to expand, go out. He had no problem with that. That's why Rabbi Reuben was out there in Chicago doing his thing. You understand? He was he was somebody from Chicago that we recognize, Rabbi Reuben. So I don't know if I said too many things. Am I answering it?
Yeah, you answered good. But along with that, what can the leadership of this generation learn from the leadership of the past? Because you're mentioning that you had probably more congregations then than we have now. I mean, we talk about now that we have too many congregations, but when we talk about our history, so back then we had more people. But what can the leadership learn from the past? Because it seems like even though you had many congregations, like you said, they were sister congregations. Nobody looked at as an opposition.
It wasn't sisters. No, I didn't say everybody. Okay. I said those two.
Okay.
I said Commandment Keepers and Bet Abraham, Rabbi Ford and Rabbi Matthews. I did not say, and so it's careful to make that distinction.
Okay.
Some of them were actually trying to compete. They never did the work Rabbi Matthews did. They were envious of him, just like people are, and never did the work he did. And actually, like Rabbi BIVENS actually distorted what he taught. Rabbi BIVENS was a contemporary with my father.
I just want to ask a question about that. Rabbi BIVENS, did you Did he used to come to Commandment Keeper?
Rabbi Matthews was a contemporary with my father, absolutely. They're trying to say that Rabbi Bivens came up with this construct on his own. No, he did not. He learned from Rabbi Matthews, but he took it up.
So now,
So yes, Rabbi Bivens, I own Rabbi Bivens, not what has become of his order, but I will never not own him because I know he was my father's contemporary.
Okay, and you've seen him out in the streets of Harlem when you were younger?
Yes, but I didn't see him doing that. But I heard the elders talking about it.
so now back then,
First going out on the streets, I guess. Okay.
so dealing with commandment keepers up to Rabbi Bivens and anybody before, after them, what role did the New Testament play in anybody's understanding of being Hebrew?
No. Now, I'm going to answer that question another way. I wanted to finish with Rabbi Bivens, too. Rabbi Bivens was my father's contemporary. Whether he was actually ordained, that part I don't know. And there's nobody left to tell me. Okay? Mm-hmm. But he was trained somewhat with them.
And he was called Rabbi?
Yes, he was. I remember that. It's from my family, referred to him as Rabbi. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the question is, what role did the New Testament play, if any, with congregations back then?
Okay. Let me see. Okay, you're talking about the Messianic thing.
And this New Testament in general?
No, the New Testament, we did not study from the New Testament. Some people think that. No. Here's what happened. When Commandment Keepers was first formulated, it was called Commandment Keepers, Ethiopian Hebrew Congregation, Pillar and Ground of Truth, Faith of Jesus Christ. If that's what people are referring to. Okay. People know about that. We don't lie. We don't have to. What that was about is, that was the hook, to bring the people in and teach them the truth. Okay. So for some people needed that hook. So if you see that written, and then eventually they did away with that faith of Jesus Christ altogether. Never taught New Testament, never taught. They might have studied New Testament because any intelligent, educated person, you got to know about what's out there. Right. So they, as rabbis, probably studied it. Right, yeah, to be able to counter it. But for them teaching us, the elect, they never taught that. You see how I am? I am a perfect example of what was taught. And I'm the younger. That's right, and I'm the youngest. So you know how much stuff they knew, the ones that's older than me in my family. So no, that was never an issue. That was completely rejected. But like I said, they themselves, I don't know all the rabbinical studies. Had my father been here and I asked him, he would say, yeah, ... He would explain. Because they study stuff like all spiritual people, leaders do. They study stuff that's not for us. So, but he would have told me the truth if I asked him. But it was never an issue. So if it was taught, it was only taught among them. I shouldn't even say taught, studied. It might have been studied among them, but never in the congregations. We never used the New Testament.
So, because we have your sisters yelling at you, but we have a lot that we can talk about. Yeah, and I know we're going to...
And really, I'm going to be as truthful as I can remember. I will be as truthful as I can remember. If I don't remember something, I won't tell it. I would say I don't know. You know?
So this question I'm going to ask, because today when people think about black Jewry, they think about, Israelites trying to be like the white Jews.
Yeah.
Back then, was Rabbi Matthew or anybody contemporary at that time, we'll start with Rabbi Matthew himself, and then you can also branch out to anybody else. Were they trying to be like white Jews? Were they trying to draw white people in? Were they trying to join with white people at all?
Absolutely not. I got to think about what I'm going to tell you about this. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, if I can speak for Rabbi Woods, people I knew intimately, Rabbi Woods, Rabbi Dorset, my father, Rabbi Moses, Rabbi McLeod, Rabbi Yirmiyahu Israel, never tried to be Jewish because they knew too much of who they were. They knew, because it was like Rabbi used to say, how could you follow somebody that's converted? That's what they thought. And here's what they taught us about the Edomites. First of all, the Edomites, the year 1042, this is what was taught. The year 1042, BCE, and this is documented. The first conversion of the Edomites into the tribe of Judah was the year 1042 BCE. Into the tribe of Judah. That's why one of the reasons why they only call themselves Judites, because that year that was the first conversion of Edomites into our faith, into the tribe of Judah. These people were brilliant. They knew all of this. They taught this. So they knew that they were the original. This is what they are, the original converts. So of course they weren't trying to be a part of them. I got to explain a couple of things about that because the story is complicated. Rabbi Matthews was so dynamic. A number of white Jews really came to admire and respect him and his work, and tried, like Rabbi Block from the Brotherhood Synagogue, really tried to get him to be a part of the larger Jewish community because they thought that he deserved that. Rabbi Block was the main one pushing that and put the application in for Rabbi to become a part of that community. And they rejected Rabbi, and he never tried again. And he said he should have never done it. Not because he wanted to be Jewish and like them, but because Rabbi Block was insisting, and you should be a part of the larger community because this could happen for you and that could happen for you. So Rabbi tried it, and it didn't work, and he knew that was a mistake.
So we want you to be clear. We just want to let people understand that Rabbi Matthew himself never tried to be included in the white Jewish community, but it may be a rabbi under him. Rabbi Block is who?
Rabbi Block is Jewish, white Jew.
Okay.
I don't know about any. There was some of the people who came from Rabbi who and some of their children went to the Jewish schools and wanted to be Jewish. That had nothing to do with us. I'm talking about commandment keepers and what commandment keepers taught.
Right.
I'm going to tell you something else that's going to maybe make you understand a little better. You heard me talk about the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrew?
Right.
The royal order was charged with keeping the mission clean. We don't have anybody left. That was one of the things they were charged with. And they had to, how must I say this? Affirm this. I don't want to say swear. They had to affirm that. And I won't go into details how they had to do that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay? They had to affirm that. Not when you say they. Individual Rabbi Matthews told them that was the wrong thing to do, and he said, especially your boys. I'm quoting him. He said, especially not your boys.
So just to clarify that Rabbi Matthews spoke heavily against Israelites sending their children to yeshiva, applying for conversions, applying for any type of associations. All of that stuff was...
Conversion is like, there may have been individuals who did that. Conversion is like saying you weren't who you were. I explained to you all earlier, the first thing we were taught is who you were. It was like saying, you're not who you say you are.
Like you have to convert to what you are.
Exactly. But Rabbi, I'm going to repeat this. That's right. Rabbi said, do not do it, especially not your boys. Did I need to say that again? He said, because you will lose them.
Which is similar to what we read in scripture. When you sent your children out, you would lose them.
That was his words, and he was very adamant until the end about that. And when people did it in spite of him, he would get up in the bema and talk about them. He was. Rabbi was rough. He would get up in the bema and talk about them. If they did it in spite of what he said, he would talk about you in the congregation.
Do you know if there are any recordings of any of his lectures anywhere?
Yeah, people got them. I don't have any. People got them. We never thought about that like that. He was like just a person to us. But people saw it another way, just like they stole that building. They saw it another way. It's just like it's your father or your family. You ain't thinking about them as documenting nothing they talking about. It's your people. So a lot of people, many people did. Somebody at one point had a collection of his lectures. We don't have it though.
So now getting a little bit closer to your home with your father, what was his role in the community, or that you saw?
Well, first of all, my father, died as a young man. He was 54. But my father, first of all, my father was a very spiritual man, just like rabbis. Rabbi Smalls and my father was like the same type. In other words, like I said, Rabbi Matthews was hot. They were kind of cool. And my father was so spiritual, such a spiritual person, until he wasn't political, but he was, I don't know how I want to say this so people understand. He was black to the bone. That's how come I'm like I am. You understand what I'm saying? And he told us some things that I would not say on tape, okay, because it might be offensive, but my father came out of Florida. You understand me? And he came out of Florida, no, but he came out of a particular kind of people out of Florida. If you know a lot of Floridians who are really black, that was my father. So when he encountered Rabbi Matthews, oh, it was on. What else could I tell you? Never taught us how to love ourselves, how to respect ourselves. And if I say what else he taught us about being black, it would be offensive to other people. So I can't say that. But that was our lessons, okay? But you can imagine. Just look at who we connect with and stuff.
And, just appreciate you taking the time to speak to us, because you are a primary source, as you were saying, as it's known that, you someone that grew up, you knew Rabbi Matthew. You knew the rabbis that he ordained. Right.
Yeah, I knew a lot of the thinking. It's just like anybody, like I know you.
Right.
And I know, and like people didn't know Jesus and talked a lot of smack about him. Because a lot of people who was writing stuff about him never knew him. And that's so bad. And the same thing with Rabbi Matthews. People either lie, or if they don't lie, they distort because they're trying to pretend like they knew something that they. But I'm telling you what the man stood on the Bema and said. That's what I'm telling you. That's what makes me a primary source. And not only did he stand on the Bema, certain things he would beat us over the head with. Especially that thing about your boys, especially that thing about you don't need to go anywhere because the Most High promised you that wherever you go, it's going to be yours. So those things he was clear about. And like I said, I cannot divulge. First of all, I wasn't part of the royal order. My parents were. But I can tell you this much about the royal order. The royal order was charged with keeping some of these things.